So recently a fellow YouTuber called Leo from the channel Hand Eye Craft sent me a tin of this wax. So it's his own recipe, his own brand, and he's selling it on his own website, so I'll leave links in the description below. But he sent it to me as a chop and board finish or reviver, but it also does the cast iron machine beds, which is probably better for me. I've been using it and it seems great on the machine beds. I haven't used it yet on a chopping board, but I will soon. But as a little thank you, I decided to make Leo a walnut pencil and finish it with his wax. I made him the pen as a little thank you, so I decided to make a little how-to video. So if you carry on watching, you'll see how I made Leo's pencil. Before I started, I used a bit of Leo's wax on my machine beds. I sanded up the bed of the lathe and then finished it off with a bit of wax and put some on the table of the bandsaw. Made the wood glide effortlessly. Now this is a bit of American black walnut I found. So you take the brass tube and cut the blanks to just over the length of the brass tube, trim them later. So I'm putting a witness mark here so I can put the two halves of the blank back together so the grain lines up properly, and I'm doing a couple of blanks here. So I'm just finding the centre, and this is a little homemade clamp I made for drilling. I just drill a 7mm hole to fit the brass tubes. Now the tubes come with a coating on them, so you've got to rough them up a bit so the glue will stick to them. So I just use a little bit of 80 sandpaper, and this 03A super glue with the activator sticks them in there perfectly, and there's no waiting round. You know, a few seconds after you've glued it in there, it's ready to turn. So a little bit on the tube, quick spray the activator, roll it in, and that's it. Leave it aside to dry for a few seconds. Now with this blank trimmer, goes in the tube and trims the blank to length. Just make sure you don't cut any metal away. Do both ends so it's nice and square to the tube. This little mandrel, and I've got the bushings and spacers already on there. So the bushings allow you to get the blank to the right diameter at each end for the fittings of the pencil. So one at each end and one in the middle. And if you notice the witness marks, I've still got the grain lines up. And then tighten down the screw on the mandrel. This tail stock in and just nip it up ever so slightly and lock it down. The fence as close as practically possible without it touching the blank, and all I use is this simple gouge to do all of the pen turning. It's the only tool I use to do pens. Don't need any expensive fancy tools, just a simple gouge. So I'm just roughing it off. Move the fence a bit closer and just turning down the timber to them bushings, slight rounds over. Now the pen can be pretty much any shape you want, but this is the shape I decided. I like this one the most. Nice and simple, looks quite elegant. And that's the turning finished, quick and simple. A little bit of sanding, start off with a little bit of 150. Just making sure that the timber is down to the bushings. And then I sand with the grain just to take out any cross grain scratches. Now a little bit of 240. Same again, take out the cross grain scratches. And finally a bit of 400. Then I get a handful of the sawdust and just burnish the timber up a little bit. Give it a spray to get rid of any of the dust. A little bit of friction polish. Just give it a few coats of that. And then just burnish it up a little bit with the cloth. And now just the final little bit of wax from Leo. Just to make it extra smooth and protect it a little bit more. And then just buff it off to a shine. Taking it off the lathe, I make sure I keep the pieces in the right order so the grain will still line up. Assembling the pencil, you take the nib coupler and put it into the bottom of the tube. Then you take the clip and the clip coupler and put it in the top of the other tube. Then you take the centre band and you put that into the bottom of the top part, and then put the two halves of the pencil together. I just use a simple bench vise, works great. Then you put the pencil mechanism in and screw the nib on, and finally the end cap. Job done.